Well, a hearty shalom to all of you. Jeffrey Seif here. Glad you're there. We are going on a journey through the Torah. We're looking at Parashat Mishpatim. Very interesting section that follows fast on the heels of the giving of the Ten Commandments. Of course, the Ten Commandments themselves are really 10 categories of commandments. For instance, therein you hear, thou shalt not murder. But then as you read through the Torah, there's a variety of cases that legitimize the taking of life for legitimate purposes, as nasty as that business is. There is a death penalty for particular malefactions. Similarly, there are times when it's incumbent upon the males of the species to go to war to defend home and hearth. And so against that backdrop, there is the taking of life. That's why it's thou shalt not murder, as opposed to thou shalt not kill. Murder is the brazen, wanton disregard for life. Killing, on the other hand, gives it a kind of sanction on occasion, unfortunate as the business is. Well, similarly, you read in the Ten Commandments, thou shalt not commit adultery, but then as you read through the rest of the Torah, there are various cases of marriage law, what constitutes a legitimate marriage and what not, etc. So thou shalt not commit adultery could be construed as a category of marriage and family law. And so we're looking at 10 commandments, 10 categories of commandments, and they're expanded as we sift through the remainder of the Pentateuch. There's actually 613 pieces of legislation, not just 10. And as we move on in the immediate aftermath of the giving of the commandments, there are some commandments that are unfolded, and in this week's reading we look at a variety of them that deal with how Hebrews who find themselves in an empowered position are able to garner others to work for them. We're looking at master-slave or relationships, and really it's when we look at slavery in the Hebrew Bible, it's really not the same as slavery in the broader culture where you have cruel abuse. Hebrews were beckoned to be kindly disposed toward those who worked for them. Perhaps the word servant mitigates some of the sting of the word slavery, but it really is descriptive too, because while individuals are beckoned to serve others, they're not allowed to be abused in the process of serving. Injuries and so forth are not tolerated in the Hebrew Bible. There's when you read through this reading for today, we have situations in here where individuals are supposed to be set free. It's not to be in perpetuity. It really is. It's a different kind of system. I know we read slavery in the Bible, but the word is a lot harsher because we understand it within the context of the way it's construed more broadly. There's a number of things that I could light upon in this week's Torah reading, but I want to look at one because I think it kind of harks to part of the national conversation today. If you look in chapter 22 of the book Exodus, and you go to verse 20, and I'm looking from looking at the TLV, and of course that's the Messianic Jewish Family Bible Society has labored at the tip of that spear with a cadre of scholars to offer a telling of the text that reflects Hebrew sentiment, the more so. And this is the work product of the movement that I participate in, Messianic Jewish Experience. Well, in chapter 22, verse 20, we read, "You must not exploit or oppress an outsider, for you were outsiders in the land of Egypt." I mean, there's a beautiful verse here. Let me read it again. You must not exploit or oppress an outsider, for you were outsiders in the land of Egypt. I am interested in this verse. He says, listen, there are aliens among you, and you don't want to be game to take advantage of them, because once upon a time, as you can recall, when you were in Egypt, you were in fact an outsider. You were an alien. You were a guest in a host culture, and the host turned on you. Do you remember that, Hebrews? Yes. Well, when you go into the land that I've given you, flowing with milk and honey, and you have opportunity to employ others, to work with others who are aliens among you, do not exploit them. Do not oppress them. And remember that you yourself were once in their shoes. I mean, the moral beauty of this speaks for itself. By way of application, we live in a world today where there is a spirited conversation going on in America about the outsiders among us. The question is, how ought we to be? We have a situation here where we have open borders and people just stream across. And the question is, how do we want to be? Xenophobia harks to individuals that are afraid of outsiders and want to push them outside. And the question is, in our current administration, is that what's at play? Are we kind of giving voice to that? And this would be problematic because America is, in fact, a country of immigrants. Never mind the fact that a number of the immigrants in America, because we are a culture that has a premium on Judeo-Christian value, our moral fiber is calibrated to text like this, where there's a premium on caring about the disenfranchised, the alien among us. It's a rhetorical question I can put to you and to the text. How are we to be toward the outsider among us? Well, according to the text here, we are beckoned to be kindly disposed, recalling that once upon a time we were beckoned to run for our lives ourselves, and that's exactly what the Hebrews did to get out of Dodge. And so we ought to be that way. By way of application, so as not to get too political, I believe that nation states ought to have borders and secure those borders. You know, most of you lock your car when you leave your car because you don't want someone else to drive it. Most of you lock your home when you go to bed at night because you don't want someone else to go into it. It's not beyond the pale of reason for people to take precautions to secure that which is theirs. And similarly with our country, it doesn't strike me at all as being outside the pale of reason to secure our borders and to have some sense and sensibility about who comes in. And I personally support our president in firming up those borders and making them real. I don't understand us to be pushing everybody out, but to have some kind of vetting process to ensure that we're letting someone in that needs to be here. To me, that doesn't strike me as being beyond the pale of reason. For those of you that have daughters, if a suitor shows up, you want to know something about that fellow before you let him take your daughter out for one date. You want to know what's coming into your world. That's just sense and sensibility. That issue aside, sometimes when we are contracting with people for various services, we realize that we can get a better deal with the alien among us. And I want to speak to you as I close about not exploiting. I always, in my home, when workers come, and if they happen to be foreigners, I like to give a good tip and a good lunch, and I want to be gracious to people. I realize that it's probably not the preferred scenario for any man to leave his family to come over to America to work 6 months out of the year and then send his money back to Mexico or Honduras or wherever. I'm sure he would rather make a living with his wife and children, but sometimes circumstances dictate and impose upon people and force them to do things that they wouldn't otherwise do, to come over here and sometimes live in the back of a pickup truck or a garage or less than wholesome circumstances just to be able to eke out a better living here seasonally and then send money there. I mean, I respect any man that's trying to take care of his business. And let me encourage you, as you have opportunity, when you're dealing with people and you have the powerful position, the text here beckons us to not be oppressive, but to be kindly disposed and to be fair. And think about the implications of that financially in the way that you attend to your economics. I'll let the government attend to the issue of the borders. That's their business. And again, I support secure borders. But those that are within us, that are among us, that are foreigners, I believe that those individuals need to be respected. And those individuals are governed by the same laws that we live in here. And as long as individuals abide those laws, then I'm pleased to make room for them in my world. As individuals from outside have opportunity to rub against me in business transactions, as seems to be the case here in play, let me encourage you to be kindly disposed toward them. It's the way I encourage myself. And by virtue of so doing, I think it contributes to inculcating in ourselves and in them the kind of virtues that resonate within us because we're Bible believers. Well, thank you for going with me on a journey to and through the Bible. Dr. Jeffrey Seif here signing out, and I'll see you next week, same time, same station, as we journey through the Torah. God bless you.